And good morning. Welcome to another edition of Unfiltered Vision News. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday from 7 to 9 a.m. Welcome to everybody who's joining me live on X, Facebook, and YouTube. Happy Friday. And today is our Prayer with Friday, and our special guest is going to be Pastor David Lowry, who's actually the founder of the Let the Truth Be Told network. So he'll be joining us at the top of the 8 o'clock hour for some prayer and just, Thanksgiving prayer and cover going into the weekend. We are going into a long weekend. So for those of you that are working that 9 to 5, 8 to 5 grind, I know you guys are looking forward to taking Monday off, but make sure you relax because sometimes when you do take that time off, everybody's like, "Yeah, let's run, let's go." And you're like, "No, I want to be in the bed." I really want to like not wake up till 10 o'clock, when I'm normally having to be like in my car at 6 a.m. to get somewhere. So definitely enjoy your weekend. And we definitely want to take this time to remember those for Memorial Day, right? Because, without the sacrifice of others, we wouldn't be here. So just thank you to all those families and individuals that have sacrificed, laid down their lives, and we honor those that have gone before us for our freedom in this country. So, with that, let's get into it. I like using all sides so that we can see the media from all sides, really letting us know what's happening on the left, right, and center. So, let me add and change my view. So, hopefully, you guys can see this really well. You know, I don't know, maybe it's just me. I wake up in the morning and I'm like, okay, what happened while I was sleeping? And then I go to the news and I'm like, what? So this is interesting. So the Trump administration bars Harvard from enrolling international students. Now that's interesting because I'm not sure if they can do that. I mean, Harvard technically is a private institution, but again, it's not because it takes federal funding and international students. Maybe they're looking at this from, I don't know, maybe like a spy or criminal, like that type of view. But let's check this out and get a little bit more background and insight on what even, how we even got here. So, Homeland Secretary, Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem wrote a letter to Harvard University barring it from enrolling international students and ordering current international students to transfer elsewhere. So the White House said enrolling foreign students is a privilege, not a right, calling Harvard a hotbed of anti American, anti Semitic, pro terrorist agitators. So from Harvard called this move retaliatory and argued it undermines Harvard's academic and research mission. The university said, "We are fully committed to maintaining Harvard's ability to host our international students and scholars who enrich the university and this nation immeasurably." So for context, the Trump administration has been in conflict with Harvard since April when it sent the school a list of demands, including the elimination of DEI programs and a government audit of the faculty and students. Harvard did not comply with these demands, leading President Trump to freeze $2 billion in federal funding to the school. Okay, so this is how the media covered it. The Hill, which is center bias, wrote that the framing of the issue from MAGA world is that Harvard and other elite colleges are bastions of far left thought and quasi subversive activity. Nothing that this argument will have some sway with his loyal base, among which Americans who have never gone to any college are heavily represented. So CNN that leans left quoted an international student who sees this as a larger fight between democracy and authoritarianism. Now, the Washington Times that leans right reported on a Harvard task force study which included that Harvard failed to constrain abusive behavior towards Jewish students. So I think some of this started with that, right? Because there were students, but again, a lot of these students, they weren't just protesting, they weren't just going to the quad and gathering people and, having signs and saying, we are protesting this issue. They were literally occupying buildings. That's when you get into criminal activity. Okay. And it was happening at Harvard, Columbia, Yale, all these upper echelon colleges. What I find fascinating is it just Harvard? What about Yale? What about Princeton? What about all these other elite colleges? Is it just Yale? So to me, to single Yale out over all of these other schools, did all of these other schools just capitulate? Did they stop their DEI programs? Did they stop? You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, what about all these other schools? Harvard is not the only Ivy League elite school that we have in this country. I think they are a lot more on the, I wouldn't say on radar or a lot more well known, but they are because Barack Obama graduated from Harvard. Uh, on the news. I guess they had like a newsletter and he was the president of that. And so it gave the school a lot more visibility, obviously, with him attending Harvard. So it's weird that it's just this school. If it's all elite schools or Ivy League schools, then I could say, okay, then you're I'm saying, across the board, you're calling everybody to the carpet. But it just seems like there's just this fight with the Trump administration and Harvard specifically. So from the center, and I'll just read the summary, and this would be from the Hill. Trump ratchets up battle with Harvard foreign students, and there's 5 takeaways that they have. So the Trump administration intensified its battle with Harvard University on Thursday, revoking the storied college's ability to enroll foreign students and demanding that any such current students transfer elsewhere for the next academic year and lose their visas. So they're just cracking down. Like they're just going to make it so where they can't even be here. Okay. This is going to get interesting because I'm like, okay, so yeah, they do at the federal level, they can deny these visas and these individuals, but they're not saying they have to leave. They just have to leave Harvard. They can go anywhere else they want to go. I mean, if you want to go to UCLA, hey, have at it. If you can afford to live in California, you should. If you can go to Harvard, I mean, I'm just saying, you got money. You're just not going to have that, Ivy League, Harvard on the resume, because if you're not from this country, you can't go there. Again, my question is this going to apply to all of the Ivy League schools? Because Harvard isn't the only one. So what if they want to go to Yale? You gonna go after Yale too? You gonna go after Princeton too? I'm just saying. I'm just putting it out there. I mean, Bueller, anybody got a question on this? But I am glad that we started out with education, because there are some things I wanted to go over today on this Friday that we have, and I really wanted to look at the Department of Education. Now, McMahon, she has been, let's see, appointed or installed, or however they get there, you know. So she's the head of the Department of Education. Got it. She voted in by Congress. They did it. Now we're looking at, okay, what does the funding look like? What does the future of education look like? Because, President Trump gave her the charge to dismantle the Department of Education, to make it so where it doesn't exist, right? And any of the services that may have been brought forth by the Department of Education, if they could be, I should say, parceled out to other agencies, do that and then just do away with the department, right? So that's what she's been tasked with. And I came across a few videos that I wanted to play for you guys on just some feedback that McMahon got from a representative. I'm also going to play a video of the former um, head of the Department of Education under Barack Obama. And then, look, there's one more video that I found very concerning about children when they are affected in the third grade, how this can lead to other things down the road, right? That may affect them in a more negative way. So let me go ahead and play the first video. And this is going to be a video between Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman, and she is a Democrat out of New Jersey, and McMahon. So here we go.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to my colleague who just asked those questions about important programs that get students ready for college. Good morning, and
Good morning.
thank you for being here. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions that I just need yes or no. Do you believe that there is illegal discrimination against people who are Black, brown, and other types of discrimination in jobs and education in this country? Yes or no?
I think it still exists in some areas.
Then can you tell me why the Office of Civil Rights in the Department of Education is being decimated?
Well, it isn't being decimated, that's
What
for
is
sure.
it being?
We have reduced the size of it. However,
Do you
we
think
are
that this-
taking on a backlog of cases that were left over from the Biden administration. And
Then
we're
why
working
would
through those.
you reduce the resources if you've got a backlog in addition to having confronted those cases that are going to come before you now?
Because we're working more efficiently in the department.
Okay, thank you. I've got real serious questions regarding your commitment to civil rights, to our students, to our teachers, to our faculty, and places of that nature. Do you believe that migrant students should have access to public education resources?
Well, migrant students do have access.
Do
at
you
this
believe
point.
that they should continue?
In some instances, yes.
Okay. Do you believe that the position of this administration to reduce the resources and the support to migrant students, at the same time they've encouraged and perhaps facilitated the coming to this country of white South Afrikaners,
I'm not sure.
is an issue of favoritism and prioritization of white over color?
Well, if I am going to have to take a couple of minutes to answer this.
Well,
Because
answer.
this administration, President Trump has made it very clear that he will not tolerate discrimination, whether it's anti-Semitism, whether it's race-related, at all on any of our schools.
Okay, I'm asking
any
you.
in our
I'm
schools.
asking you
Well,
about
I'm going to
your
answer this
opinion,
question if I
because I'm
may.
going to tell you. I know what the president's position is. He's made it quite clear. I'm asking you, as the Secretary of Education, how you perceive this? Yes or no? If this is
I
not
am
an
the Secretary-
illustration of replacement and favoritism, say no. If it
I
is,
am-
say yes.
I am the Secretary of Education who has been approved to run this agency by Congress, and I was appointed by the President, and I serve at his pleasure under his mandate. So therefore,
Thank
the
you.
direction of his administration is
appreciate
what
it.
I will follow.
Do you recognize the fact that one of the important reasons that the federal government got into public education was to establish that there would be standards so that children would be treated equally in pursuing education, that states had been found to discriminate against Black students in particular in many of the states, and that to send that responsibility and authority back to the states would just enhance those disparities, again, considering the environment in which this president continues to foster about who's important and who's not? Yes or no?
Congresswoman, there are laws on the books in Title VI that totally.
Laws don't mean
therefore-
anything to this administration. I'm asking you do you realize that to send authority back to the states, to eliminate your oversight, to eliminate your accountability, to eliminate your determination as to resources going to schools that are teaching, public schools that are teaching underserved communities, that this will result in the very reason that we had to get the involvement of the federal government in this issue? And that's a yes or a no. Either you believe
It isn't a yes or no, but I will not respond to any question based on the theory that this administration doesn't care anything about the law and operates outside it. So
This
that is a
administration
mischaracterization, and I won't
I
respond.
reclaim my time for 5 seconds, because you can say anything you want. Your rhetoric means nothing to me. What means something to me is the actions of this administration, from the President of the United States conducting himself in a corrupt manner to his family, enriching him and himself corruptly, to determine that this administration can tell you what's right, what's wrong, what's lawful, what's not, that it can arrest judges, it can arrest lawyers, it can use its power to bully people. And I'm telling you, the Department of Education is one of the most important departments in this country, and you should feel shameful to be engaged with an administration that doesn't give a damn.
Ms. Litlow.
I yield back.
Okay. Very interesting how she accused Secretary McMahon of rhetoric when that's all she was doing from her seat. Literal rhetoric. I'm like, wow. I mean, at least you know what you're doing, because you know what rhetoric is, because that's what you're doing. But you're accusing somebody literally of what you just did. Why are you so bent, Ms. Coleman, on positioning yourself this way? Now, I want everybody to take a look at Miss Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman. For those of you that are viewing, and for those of you that are listening, I'm looking at govtrack.us. And you can go to govtrack.us, and what it's going to do, it's going to give you kind of a little synopsis of our representatives in the House and the Senate. It will tell you what state they're in, right? And what district they are a part of. If they're, if they're from the House, obviously, if they're a senator, it's the state that they represent, and their political affiliation. It will also let you know from the time that they've started till now, and their approximate age. It gives you their website. It also pulls in information from Open Secrets, and it gives you a bio of them. It will show you if there's been any misconduct during their time in office. It will also let you see their ideology within their leadership chart, and she tends to lean purple. And it's got a little purple triangle here. And it says in our ideology chart, each dot is a member of the House of Representatives positioned according to our ideology score left to right. And our leadership score, leaders are toward the top. So she is, here we go. There she is. She's toward the top. She's got her little purple triangle. And I'm kind of like this website, how it sets everything out and how it really aggregates even open secrets. It will tell you the committee's membership that she has and legislation that's been enacted by this um, representative. I guess she's got more. She's been here since 2015. And so she's been a part of Transportation Security Preparedness Act of 2021, the Quadrennial Homeland Security Review Technical Corrections Act for the relief in Yasmin, Fabola, Urize, Kokoya. I don't even know what that's about. It's like, is that even for America? Like, those are a lot of words that are not American. I'm just saying. Just saying. TSA, National Deployment Force Act. There was another piece of legislation she was a part of to designate the facility of the United States Postal Service located at, I guess, a different location within her state because it has goes down to New Jersey. And what I really do respect about track.gov, and thank you so much, govtrack.us, is it outlines and it gives you kind of like the shorthand, because I know everybody's like, well, how are they voting, and what are they saying, and what bills are they a part of? And she was giving Secretary McMahon a lot of heat for her position. Well, why does the Trump administration feel this way? And what do you believe? Well, first of all, it's not a church. I need to remind every member of Congress, when you are questioning someone and you say, do you believe this or do you believe that? We're not in church. Okay. We have freedom of speech according to the First Amendment. All right. Letting us know that our rights are given to us by God, not government. Okay. But when you start asking somebody if they believe something, that's when we get into that mindset of religion, right? I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe in God. I, you know, I don't believe in man because man is not over me. I'm a human being, and we're equal men here on the planet. We've all fallen short. I do not believe in legislation, right? There were pieces of legislation that I support and that I don't support, but that's not a belief. And so when you get into beliefs, you get into ideologies. And I'm really glad that the secretary responded the way she did, because she was right. She's like, I serve at the behest of the president and what he wants to carry forth in his administration. Her believing or not believing has nothing to do with her job. Now, had the representative said, do you support these initiatives in this way? And by supporting them, do you think it can become a racial issue or racial disparity? When you position the question more like that, yes, she's still going to have the same answer because she's serving at the behest of the president. So her support for something, yay or nay, really doesn't come into mind. If the president says, hey, this is something I want cut, I want you to do, she does her job. Now, I'm sure that they might have a conversation if there is something she may have a question on, and there might be something that she can't support or get behind. And that's where that conversation comes in. But that's how it should have been positioned, not belief. Do you support this? Right? Because I think a lot of times when people are supporting something or not supporting something, people want to tie it to, well, then you have to believe it this way or that way. It's like, no. Supporting something or not supporting something does not translate to belief, because if it did, then we'd have some craziness going on, which we actually do. But it would make our government church. Government's not church. Government's not God. Thank goodness, because they're failing at everything. I mean, my goodness. So again, really impressed with govtrack.us. We're going to be coming here at different times, a little bit more audience, just to let you know. I really like the way they've outlined things. And I'm going to take a short break. I'm going to pull a video because I'm curious to see. I'm thinking she might be in another video. But we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back.
At All Sides, we believe unbiased news doesn't exist. To get more clicks and make more money, media outlets often report news with a left, right, or sensational slant, either to suit their own agenda or because by telling us what we want to hear, we'll come back for more. Several news outlets in the center do a good job of portraying both sides equitably, but for the most part, American news media is biased. Bias isn't necessarily a bad thing. The key is to get multiple perspectives. But making matters worse, social media and internet search results are heavily filtered, showing us the most popular opinion or results that match our preferences and make us happy. That means we're all living in filter bubbles, where we're only exposed to viewpoints we already agree with, making us less informed and less tolerant of different people and ideas. At All Sides, we give bias ratings for hundreds of media outlets. By freeing people from filter bubbles and providing different perspectives, we can all be better equipped to understand the world and each other. So how do we do it? All Sides has created a patented, fair, transparent process to rate the media bias of hundreds of news outlets and writers. We assess each media source and rate them as far left, center, lean right, or far right, allowing you to quickly identify different perspectives. All Sides is constantly evolving our media bias engine. The more you participate, the better our ratings will be, and the better our news coverage will be. Go to allsides.com to get involved.
And good morning. Thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, bringing you the news unfiltered 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Friday. And happy Friday out there to everyone. So I was like, I thought I saw her in another video. So she was actually one of the representatives at that situation in New Jersey with the mayor. And we covered this last week where the mayor wanted entry into a federal facility. Now, can representatives of the House and also senators gain access and entry? Yes, they can, but there is protocol that they have to take upon entry. And there are certain people that they can or may, that they may or may not be able to bring in that facility with them because it is an ICE detention center. It is very high security. There is there is a level of classification that goes behind that. And I'm just saying, there's protocol, there's rules. You can't just walk up to ICE and be like, hey, I want to get in. They're like, what? I don't care if you are a congressman or woman, you need to go through the proper channels to gain access and entry. Outside of that, they had a mob of people with them. But I just really wanted you to hear what Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman had to say. Now, this is the same woman that just questioned the Secretary of Education. Okay, I'm going to stop it right there. It's just so sad, right? Should we be here at the point within our political process where we're using our political capital to bully others and demand entry into places that we shouldn't, and to demand things of those that we should or should not? Now, from what I can see with Representative Coleman, is she's a bully. She truly, truly is. It's sad to see someone in the halls of Congress that is that disrespectful, not only to Secretary McMahon, just to the country in general. You know, there is protocol. I don't know if you don't understand what protocol is, but you need to learn it because you do represent the United States of America as a House representative, Representative Coleman. Yes, I'm talking to you. So I do hope you get to watch this video. What you did was very disrespectful on any level. I don't care the color of your skin. I do not care your background. Stop being a bully and using race as an excuse to act out of pocket. You're a bad example. And at your age, you should be a better example. You really should be. You should be somebody I can look at 80 years old and say, okay, she's powerful, she's doing her job, but do things the right way. You're being more of an activist as opposed to a representative that's needed for New Jersey. So if anybody is in New Jersey, by the way, she's in the 12th district. I need somebody to run for her seat. 26. Okay. I need somebody running for her seat. Okay. I'm with the Redemption Party. If you want to run under the Redemption Party, that's great. If not, somebody else from, the Republican Party or even another Democrat, run for her seat and remove her because you deserve better representation than that. Period. You just do. But in watching her video, it kind of, I don't want to say it took me down a rabbit hole, but then I thought about it and I was like, well, what did the former head of the Department of Education have to say about where the department is right now? Now I'm going to bring him up. I found a video on him, Arnie, and he actually served under President Obama as the Secretary of Education. And I wanted you to see his take on where the department is going and the paring down of the department, right? Because the department isn't gone. They've just eliminated positions that were not necessary. And then we're going to also look at the budget that they have for 2025. And you might be surprised at the budget. So here we go.
Let's continue the conversation now with former Secretary of Education Arnie Duncan. Thank you so much for joining us again. What do you think all this means for students and teachers across the country?
Well, the executive order today is, as you know, performative. It has no legal power. The Department of Education was created by Congress. It could only be eliminated by Congress. Congress would never do that. But unfortunately, the very real damage and destruction that President Trump has already done to the department is going to have real, unfortunately, very tough consequences, I'm afraid, for students K to 12 and now for higher education students as well going forward. So the damage is already done.
So President Trump says that critical functions like student loans and funding for special needs children will continue. From your experience, do you think that it's possible for these programs to continue in this scenario?
Well, you can never say what's not possible with Trump. And so the truth is that none of us know. What I do know is that they have taken on extraordinary risk on the higher education side that could hurt, millions of students, trying to go to college. I do know they've created a bureaucratic nightmare that states won't have one place to call when they need help education. They have to call around to a bunch of different bureaucracies in D.C., which makes no sense. We tried to create one state desk that every state would have a single point of contact to call, and we can work it through any issues they want. I also know we just do block grants to states that there's no accountability. And that money that goes to states for poor children, for rural children, for children with special needs, whatever it might be.
There are those, including some working in education, who say that the federal mandates hamstring educators on the ground, and they say valuable resources are being wasted on paperwork to satisfy department requirements. Do you see room for changes in some of these areas?
Again, it's funny, people say that talking point. I just said, give me one concrete example where that's the big problem. And as you know, 90% of the funding is at the state and the local level. 10% of the funding comes at the federal level. What we do have in this country is a reading crisis. Not a single thing Trump has done, not a single thing he has uttered or said helps an additional child, one child in this country, better learn how to read. That's where we should be focused.
Are you hearing from local school superintendents and teachers unions about this?
Well, I've talked to university presidents. I spoke a couple weeks ago to 2,000 educators from 50 states in Orlando, Florida. And I got to tell you, I've never, ever, ever seen this level of fear. It's visceral. It's like stunning. People are scared for their profession. They're scared for the students they serve. They're scared for their jobs. Being an educator is never an easy job, but to feel that your own government is now attacking public education, is trying to dismantle public education, that's unprecedented in the history of our nation.
You mentioned the fear. Is there a particular concern, an example you could give us that you're especially fearful of?
Well, you just have to look to Florida. Florida is always the bellwether for what Republicans do. And so I'll just tell you what's happened in Florida. Florida leads the country in book bans by a lot. Florida, as you know, has attacked children who happen to be born gay. Florida has taken away opportunity for poor children. They've created a big voucher program that actually helps a lot of wealthy kids go and takes away money from poorer places. And sort of staggeringly, they've changed the curriculum to say that slavery had benefits for the enslaved. Think about that for a minute. Slavery had benefits for those who were enslaved. So that's the bellwether. The Republican Party always goes where Florida goes. And the real question is, as a nation, do we want folks banning books, micromanage that level? Do we want our children being taught that slavery had benefits for the enslaved? I don't think that's what Americans want, or whatever their political beliefs might be.
Former Secretary of Education Arne Duncan, we thank you so much for your time as always.
Thank you.
Okay. I know that was a lot to digest, but I wanted to play him in context. I don't like to take people out of context if it's, to anybody's thinking in that. I don't know. I just had to sit there for a second because obviously I pulled up the video initially and I listened to it, and then I just listening to it again, I'm like, whoa, this dude said to children that are born gay. Did anybody catch that or miss that? I caught that. And I was like, what? What does that have to do with education? First of all, what does that have to do with you learning how to read, how to write, and how to do basic math? This is why our babies can't do basic math at 18, because you're more focused on their sexuality and their sexual preference and their pronouns and all of these things, as opposed to being focused on just educating them as humans. That was the most disgusting thing I've ever heard from an educator. Children are not born gay, by the way. They're not. And this might offend some people on X, but I'm letting you know here right now, they are not born gay. Ever. Children are innocent. And it's depraved adults that prey on them, that mess with them, that manipulate their minds, making them believe there's something they're not, or making them believe that they are gender they're not, or making them believe something that's not true because of your sick ideology. Yeah. That was a sick statement. You got a sick mind. And some of the books that were banned in Florida, by the way, were soft or hardcore porn for children. By the way. Now, there were some books under critical race theory that they banned. There were. I'm not saying they're not. But when we teach education, especially in regards to slavery, let's just teach the truth, because we all know it's been whitewashed. It has. It was. It is. And it's still up to us as parents, as those in the Black community, to teach our children the truth about history. Now, I actually had somebody when I was doing this show before. I've reprised the show, and she's out of, I want to say, either Delaware or Maryland. I have to reach out to her again. Just amazing woman. And, she had to talk to her daughter's teacher about what was being taught in the schools because she said, these things aren't true. And you're teaching my child things that are not true about her background and her lineage and her history. And so she had to have that back and forth with the teacher. See, these educators, they're not educators, they're indoctrinators, period. And our children deserve better, but that's why we're here. This is why our babies can't read because someone in the Department of Education like Arnie. I'm glad he's gone. He needs to retire somewhere because to say that any child is born gay is disgusting. And you sound like a pedophile, sir. Just letting you know that right now. You sound like a really not so nice person. And you definitely don't ever need to be around children. Now, to just shortly touch on the statement that Florida had about, blacks actually developing skills and, they're making it seem like slavery was a good thing. It was not a good thing. It was very abusive. It was very destructive. I'm grateful that people were actually able to survive it. And they actually did, attain a skill set, which was good. I'm glad they had a skill set, but it wasn't rooted, like it wasn't to make it seem like slavery was a good thing. Slavery was never a good thing. I'm glad that people were able to survive, but slavery was not a good thing. And to put the two together and go like, well, you did benefit from slavery. No, there was no benefit to slavery. Not never. And we're still sorting through that. And we're going to get there. But yeah, to say that children are born gay, no. But the rest of it wasn't lost. The things that he said about the Department of Education, saying, people are afraid to lose their jobs and people are afraid of, if you're doing your job, you shouldn't be afraid of losing your job. If you're in fear of losing your job, it's because you weren't doing your job, period. And I wanted to point this out because this is the fiscal budget for 2025. And this section right here says overall, the fiscal year 2025 budget requests $82.4 billion in discretionary funding for the Department of Education, including a change in a mandatory program CHIMP and recessions. This request reflects a $3.1 billion or 4% increase from the fiscal year of 2024 annualized. So it's increasing. It's not decreasing. So I don't know where a lot of this rhetoric is. It's like, oh my gosh, all the money is going to be gone. It's like, I need y'all to stop and read and stop getting people all in a lather about things that are going on that may not be going on. You're just out here just saying stuff. It's like, find people the information that you're talking about and at least point to one thing. Now, I just pointed to one thing for you guys here in my audience. And for those of you that are listening by audio, they're increasing the budget. So if they're increasing the budget and they're not taking anything away, what are we doing here? Why are you so upset about what's going on? I really need people to take out the time to look, because you're going to hear a lot of rhetoric out there, especially about the Department of Education. But I just wanted to touch, maybe just here, K through 12 education. They proposed new and additional investments to lift student achievement using evidence-based strategies. So this is where some of the money is going for the fiscal year 2025. They want to increase student attendance and engagement, providing high dosage tutoring, right? And expand summer, extended, and after school learning opportunities. So they're adding, they're not taking away. So to have someone who was the former head of the Board of Education, give all of this, the scare tactics that he did, is he really helping? He's not helping, and the thing about it is they just don't believe you guys are going to read. I'm just saying. They don't believe you're going to read. They don't believe that you're going to take the time out to research any of this. They rely upon fear. They rely upon you to just listen to them and go with that narrative. And it's sad because there's a lot of political rhetoric out there that just, sways you. It's emotional politics, y'all. You got to be on board. You got to know what we're doing. And so with that, I wanted to check out, I found another article here on nces.ed.gov. Yeah. And the first one was from ed.gov, and that was for the Department of Education, that budget. You can Google that. Now, this one is about reading performances, and this is the nces.ed.gov and their programs. And I just wanted to read this summary. It said, at grade 4, the average reading score in 2019 was lower than the score in 2017, when the assessment was last administered, but it was higher than the score in 1992. Okay. Similarly, at grade 8, the average reading score in 2019 was 263, was lower than the score in 2017, but it was higher than the score in 1992. So it's fluctuated, right, at grade 4, but I really want to look at grade 3, because I also found another video I'm going to play for you guys real quick, because we're looking to bring Pastor Laurie in at the top of the hour, where they're talking about how in 3rd grade, there's a large effect if you are reading at your grade level or not. So let's take a look.
March is National Reading Month, and the focus across many American classrooms is on early childhood literacy. As Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, students who struggle to read by 3rd grade could face lifelong challenges.
When it comes to children learning how to read, most experts agree the pivotal year is 3rd grade.
So they move from learning how to read to reading to learn other things.
Emily Mitchell is with Sylvan Learning, based in Baltimore County, Maryland.
If students aren't ready to make that jump, they get left behind really quickly.
Mitchell says the importance of children reading at grade level by 3rd grade has been understood for years, because many students, she says, who fall behind by 3rd grade never catch up.
If they're close to 3rd grade level, they'll be okay, but if they're not, it has honestly lifelong effects.
Maryland's General Assembly in 2011 created a task force to study school dropouts and their impact on the criminal justice system. The report found a connection between 3rd grade reading levels and the adult prison population. The task force found 23% of below basic 3rd grade readers will likely drop out of high school. 23%. For comparison, 9% of children with basic reading skills and 4% of proficient readers will likely drop out of high school. The report then looked at Maryland's prison population and found 57% of inmates under age 25 were high school dropouts.
We want to make sure that we can get as many of our 3rd graders reading by the end of the year as possible.
If that's the goal, the question then becomes, how is it accomplished?
I think you can identify little ones that are struggling very young.
Dr. Carrie Wright is the interim Maryland State Superintendent of Schools. She took over in 2023 with a focus on improving reading proficiencies, something she's done before.
You know, we're living in a new era in public education in Mississippi.
In 2013, Wright was hired as the Mississippi State Superintendent of Education and presided over what's been called the Mississippi Miracle.
It's not a miracle. It's hard work Over a long period of time,
The year Wright took over, Mississippi passed a law mandating every third grade student must read at grade level before moving to fourth grade. These laws are often called third grade reading retention policies. They say if a student cannot read at grade level, they either repeat third grade or receive interventions to catch up.
for me, it's prevention and intervention.
According to federal test scores in 2013, the year the law passed, Mississippi students scored on average a 209 in fourth grade reading, far below the national average of 221. But by 2022, the most recent year for results, Mississippi had passed the national average. Mississippi now scores a 217 in fourth grade reading. The national average sits at 216.
We need to make sure that all of those teachers have the skill sets that they need to diagnose those kinds of issues and the skill sets that they need to intervene in a very early age.
According to Education Week, 25 states and the District of Columbia either allow or require districts to hold back students who are not reading proficiently by the end of third grade.
The answer is balanced approach. If a school really doesn't think a child is ready for fourth grade, then it's not a terrible thing to hold them back, but they do need extra support when they go through third grade again to make sure that they'll be successful the second time through.
I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Okay, well, thank you guys for watching that video. I know it was a little bit long, and I know, right, I know I did some long videos today, over 2 minutes, but I wanted to play them so you got the context of what we're talking about here, with these third graders especially, and just how they truly pointed out, if they are not reading at grade level by third grade, it trickles down throughout their life and they're in a worse place. But what I found most concerning about that video is how, the standards, or I should say the reading level, went from 221 to 217. And I'm grateful that Mississippi caught up. So that means the hard work that Dr. Wright put in place was helping these children. But more concerning on the national level, why did it go down? Why didn't it go up? Well, during that time, everybody was on lockdown, right? But people really got to see what was happening to their children. And it was a good thing that they got to see what was happening to their children, but the battle continues because, again, we have indoctrinators. We do not have educators. And now the litmus test is to see, well, where are our children at now? What are we doing now to recover? And, the third grade reading levels offer an important indicator of students' academic trajectories and an opportunity for targeted intervention with at-risk children while they are still in elementary school. I'll stop there because I showed you how with the Department of Education, they want to increase funding and they are increasing it. And one of the places they're looking at is to help students, so that tutoring and the extra after school, programs that they're going to be offering. And so I also found this literacy, sorry, tongue-tied this morning, statistics for 2024 to 2025. Where are we now? And this is the National Literacy Institute.com. I'm going to sneeze. I'm not going to sneeze. I always say that, and I get ready to pause and mute myself so you guys don't have hear me sneeze in the microphone. But it says globally, the overall literacy rate stands at a commendable level for individuals 15 and above. The combined literacy rate for both genders is 86.3%. Males in this age group exhibit a literacy rate of 90%, with females closely trailing 82.7%. Well, that's good. And it's saying on average, 79% of U.S. adults nationwide are literate in 2024. 79%. That's scary. I think we should be better now. We have more technology, right? We have all of these things, but our literacy rates are at 80%. Like, that's it. Like, what are we doing? 21% of adults in the US are illiterate. So that's good. That, I guess. But, I want to be at like 2% illiterate, right? Instead of 21%. It says 54% of adults have a literacy below 6th grade reading level. So 50% of us are reading at a 6th grade level. How are people graduating from college? You know what I'm saying? There's only so many percentages out of 100 that you got. And if 54% have a literacy rate below a 6th grade level, 20% are below a 5th grade level out of that 54%. That's scary. That means our babies aren't reading and our babies aren't being taught to read. And so, with that, we're going to take a quick break. And afterwards, we're going to have our special guest, Pastor David Lowry, join us. So, we'll take a quick break and I'll see you guys on the other side.
We've unified our end-to-end encrypted services to make them easier to use together, because privacy should be the default for everyone. With the new Proton ecosystem, you can add events to Proton Calendar automatically when you accept an invitation. Easily share large files with a secure Proton Drive link. Send secure Proton Drive links privately with Proton Mail.
And we are back. Thank you for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News, where we bring you the news unfiltered, 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Friday. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and we do have a special guest with us here today, Pastor David Lowry, the founder of the Let the Truth Be Told Network. Let me bring him up to the stage shortly for our Prayer with Friday segment. I've been on the air now for the past 3 weeks and it's been wonderful. So thanks everybody that's joined me or sent me comments or told me like, we can't hear you. You sound like you're underwater, which was really good because now I pay a lot more attention, a lot more attention to making sure that the microphone is right and making sure that you can hear me and that I can hear myself. Just making sure the clips are right, because I want you guys to have a good experience when you join me, because you are actually giving me your time every morning and I don't want it to be wasted. I want it to be beneficial for you, especially my viewers and listeners out there. So I'm just waiting for Pastor Lowry to join us. But while we are waiting, we can check out another news story. Now, in our last segment, we were talking about literacy rates in our country and just how, we've got 54% of the country reading at a grade level below the 6th grade. I was unfortunately one of those individuals. I graduated high school, and when I went into college, I was tested for reading and comprehension, and it stated that I was at a 5th grade reading level. Scary, right? I shouldn't have graduated from high school at a 5th grade reading level, but I did. And luckily, they had a learning and reading center so I could go in and get myself up to a 13th grade reading level, which is a freshman in college. And then I was able to go on from there, but just grateful that they caught that in me, and they may not catch that for everyone to, and everyone may not have the ability to go to a reading lab to get caught up in reading where they need to be. So just grateful for that. And again, reading, as they say, is fundamental. So if you have a child in your life, or if you have children or nieces or nephews, make sure that they're reading. Get their get them tested even outside of school to see if they need some extra tutoring, because it is important. It does affect their lives later on. And now we're going to add our special guest to the stage, Pastor David Lowry. Let me bring him on up.
Good morning, Doc.
Hey,
How
how
are
you
you?
doing, Pastor?
Good.
Good.
Well,
Can you hear me okay?
yes, I can hear you fine. First, let me give honor to God and our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ of Nazareth for making it possible for me to be here, as well as those watching the show. And thank you for having me on your show, Doc.
I know, it's like, you're on my show now.
I love it. I'm here in Atlanta, Georgia, with my family. My grandson is about to have his first son. I'll have a great grandson in a matter of days or hours now. So it's just an honor to be here, and it's an honor to be on the show with you.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for joining us with our Prayer With segment that we have here on Fridays. And the main point of it is to pray cover over us going into the weekend, and also just a prayer of gratitude, right? I think sometimes we're always running to God because we want something, but we're never really letting him know how grateful we are for the things that he's already done and given us and will do. So with that, I'll let you, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we can go ahead and go into prayer.
Well, I'm a child of an immigrant family that migrated from Arkansas to Chicago. I grew up there and graduated from high school at 15 and went off to college. I opened my first business at 17, and I've never looked back since. I raised my children to be God-fearing children, and they've all been pretty successful. And that's the type of ideology that we need today in our country to get it back on track. So it's just a blessing that, you and I have met. God does things for a reason. And I think that what we've seen in the last 4 years was ungodliness. The things that the Liberal Party did had nothing to do with God, but promoted all the other different cultures that has really shaken our country. But I thank God that we got President Trump back into office, who has been almost killed twice. So I know God has his hand on him to bring our country back. So with that being said, let us pray. Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for letting us wake up this morning to see another day. Father, I pray for our country that we can get back on track. Lord, you know our hearts and our minds. You know the things and difficulties that we're seeing in this day and time. Lord, I pray for all the families this morning who have gathered together for this memorial holiday. Lord, I pray for all the fallen soldiers in this country who have stood in many different other countries. They have lost their lives. And today, on this weekend, we memorialize them. We honor them in the name of Jesus of Nazareth. So, Lord, right now, I ask that you continue to guide us and lead us. Return us back to the place that we used to be. Lord, I ask for your wisdom and your knowledge and your integrity, your honesty, so that we could be one America again. And Lord, right now, I ask that you pour the Holy Spirit out on our land, that we might become together once again. And Father, I ask you that all Christians and all Americans stand tall and bring you back to this country. For you, after I'm gone, and send the Holy Spirit. We thank Jesus for giving us this opportunity that we can stand and be one nation. And Father, right now, in the name of Jesus, I pray that you bring our country back, that we can be the model that was given to us and our forefathers. In God we trust. For you said, if my people will call my name and turn from their wicked ways, that you would heal them and the land. So I'm asking for your healing power, Lord. Right now, in the name of Jesus of Nazareth, I request these things to bless all the families under the sound of my voice. Bless all of those soldiers who lost their lives. Let this be a Memorial Day of unity, and that we can bring all Americans together, that can be one nation under God to make this country great again. Amen, amen, amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for that. That's awesome. So I'm really hoping everybody is inspired by that this weekend. And like I said, take your time this Memorial weekend. If you don't get out of bed and you just want to rest, rest. It's okay. You don't have to run around.
Yes,
You can't order
yes.
barbecue in. I'm just saying.
Yeah, Doc, this is an opportunity that I see to bring God back to this country. I think that what the American people have seen in the last 4 years, this is a very spiritual war, and the American people better understand that we must now stop thinking about the material things in life, because the scripture says, first seek ye the kingdom and righteousness. And the key word is righteousness. And that's what we need to get back to. We need to start doing the right things. No longer can we call ourselves differently. We are all
Right.
one people under God in this nation. And that's what we should be seeking, that kingdom and righteousness, and watch how our country will flourish when God is back in control of things. Thank you so much, Doc. And God bless
Okay.
America.
Thank you. And thank you so much for being on the show. This is our fearless leader of the Let the Truth Be Told network, Pastor David Lowry.
I
And
can,
you can
yes,
definitely,
well, my talk, um, and we discuss a lot of things. Doc is my co-host, and I'm telling you, the show is riveting. We are taking leaps and bounds. We've created our own network called Let the Truth Be Told Network, where Doc will be showing her show, and other shows are coming aboard with us. And this is a faith-based network. We're being led by God in Christ, so that we can bring the truth to the nation and bring solutions to those who are having problems. And that's what this is about, seeking the kingdom and its righteousness, so God will turn back to this country and this country will be blessed again.
yes, yes. Thank you. And thank you so much again for joining us here on Prayer with Fridays. And with that, we're going to
You're
take a
breaking
quick
up a little
break.
bit.
Sorry about that. With that, we're going to take a quick break and we'll see you guys on the other side. And we are back here with Unfiltered Vision News. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you so much for joining us for our Prayer With segment. I'm sorry if things got a little, I should say, glitchy with the Wi Fi, but that happens. Like I told you guys, we're going through the bumps and bruises, but I'm going to keep forging forward. I'm not going to let anything stand in my way, because I want to make sure that you guys have news that you can ingest, and news that you can actually make an informed decision about, as opposed to just being a talking head regurgitating talking points. I want to dive in. And we really dove in the first hour, really looking at the Department of Education, what they're doing, and the opposition that they have in Congress, as well as the former department head of education. And looking at the literacy rates, looking at the 54% of Americans are reading at below a sixth grade level, and 21% of those are at a fifth grade level. So it's very concerning what we have going on in our country. But you know what, as long as we are armed with the information, we can make better decisions, and we can help one another get better down the line, right? We have this saying in our church, and we have these shirts that say, do good. And that's what we need to do good to those around you. So we want to take another look here at RFK's Maha report blames U.S. food medication for children's chronic disease epidemic. Now, I saw a little bit of this exchange with Robert F. Kennedy and another member of Congress. I'm not going to play that for you here, but their exchange was very interesting because, he pointed out, you know, chronic illness has gotten worse and not better. And I'm really grateful for this movement of making America healthy again, because for so long, people have been suffering and wondering why, and no one really cared to answer the question. I mean, at least acknowledge the question, right? People want to be at least acknowledged, even if you don't answer it. Even if you don't know the answer, you can say, yeah, we see there's a situation here. But for far too long, people have just been under siege, unfortunately. So the Trump administration released a 72-page report on Thursday chronicling what's driving a chronic disease crisis among American children. Now, here's the thing. They don't want to hear about it. And when I say they, I am talking about the Democratic Party. They don't want to hear the truth. The Food and Drug Administration doesn't want to hear the truth, because guess who's been in those seats for the longest time? They did. It was they were the theys, okay? And now they're just being called to the carpet. Here's my thing. You know what? You didn't do a great job, but you now have the opportunity to do a good job for the American people. Are you going to let politics get in the way of that? I think that's the broader question. Are you going to do your job, or are you going to sit back and play politics? Time will tell. So the Maha report, Make Our Children Healthy Again, was commissioned by various cabinet members under the leadership of Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. It identified major drivers for chronic illnesses such as chemicals in food, overuse of medicines, chronic stress, and lack of physical activity, and blamed conflicts of interest in the food and pharmaceutical industries. And so what would happen when he's talking about those conflicts, what will happen is somebody that may have worked for the FDA will go and work for a private corporation and sit on their boards. And because they have the insider track with the government, they're sharing that information. And there's nothing really there that doesn't stop them from sharing that information. And so they've used it to help companies that may not be able to circumvent some of the government regulations to get their stuff pushed through, or even leverage their relationships that they have within the federal government, within that private corporation. So those are the conflicts of interest that could definitely happen. So the report was compiled in compliance with an executive order issued by President Donald Trump on. Yep, I knew that was going to happen. I knew it. I'm so sorry, y'all. Everything on my desk fell apart, like the camera fell down. But at least you guys can still see and hear me, so I'm not mad about it. So I'm going to read through this, and then I will take a break, come back, have everything set up. I told you it was going to happen. It's just like, how am I going to handle this? How am I going to get through it? So for those of you watching, my digital camera decided to just fall forward. And for those of you listening and heard that little bit of a record, my equipment fell down. It's fine. We'll fix it. So where were we? So the executive order issued by President Trump on February 13th. So how the media covered it. So NPR, that leans left bias, and Fox News, that's right, both framed headlines around the poor state of children's health in America as highlighted by the report. Fox News also highlighted the report's national security concerns, writing roughly 75% of Americans youth aged 17 to 24 do not qualify to serve in the military. Wow. Due to obesity, asthma, allergies, autoimmune diseases, or behavioral disorders. So that's very concerning, because obviously we do have a powerful military and want to make sure that we have a healthy and powerful military, but 75%, not 20%, you guys, 75% of the targeted age, and that is a targeted age for military preparedness, is 17 to 24. They can't even serve. And that is very concerning. And News Nation, that leans center, highlighted criticisms of the report, writing, critics fear the report may lead to sweeping regulations on widely used chemicals like glyphosate and atrazine, which are pesticides often targeted by environmental advocates for their health risks. And so, the reason why President Trump really put Kennedy in office is because, as an attorney, Mr. Kennedy has gone forth and actually fought in a lot of these cases with companies like Monsanto, which have, put things like glyphosate in their products. And also, products like Miracle Grow have glyphosate in them. There are certain protein powders out there that have glyphosate. So it's something that people really need to look out for that's in their food. But luckily, we do have a human health secretary that's in there wanting to make sure that America is healthy again. So, with that, I'm going to take a quick break and I will see you guys on the other side.
The browsers of today are broken. They've been overtaken by a barrage of sneaky and annoying ads, trackers that follow your habits, and cookies that build profiles, and all sorts of other internet clutter that's taking precedence over the content that you want to see. In fact, these useless bites can take up to a whopping 50% of page load times, with a third of it anxiously trying to learn more about you. To make matters worse, some ad blockers are even letting ads through when large advertisers pay them. But do you really want a leaky ad blocker? It's because of these very reasons that we developed Brave, a new browser that kicks internet crud to the curb and makes it faster, safer, and better to surf the web than your current browser. With Brave, everything you need is built right in. We integrated technology that automatically blocks trackers, annoying ads, and shields everything that can cramp your style and destruct your privacy. With it, you can expect increased speeds nearly 2 times faster on laptops and up to 4 times faster on mobile. And unlike any other browser, Brave allows you to support your favorite publishers with automatic micropayments. So it's a win-win for you and your favorite sites. To top it all off, Brave is open source because we truly believe it's our web and we need to fix it together. So ask yourself this question: do you want a web browser made for the internet of today? If so, try Brave. It's faster, safer, and ad-free.
Hey, and welcome back to the show. Thank you guys for, hanging with me through my little debacle. My camera fell apart. And I told you guys, I was like, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. So, but how are you going to handle it? Are you going to, scream? Or are you going to, roll with the punches? And thank you just, hanging with me this morning and rolling with the punches. As you can see, I'm back on camera. Luckily, I didn't lose audio. So I was grateful for that. I was like, I could keep reading. I can deal with the lights and the camera, but can I keep reading? Is the most important thing. So thank you so much for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News, where we bring you the news unfiltered, 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Friday Eastern time. And I hope you guys don't hear the lawnmower in the background, because if the lawnmower is in my show, it's rude. I was like, I'm trying to be here early enough. Weekend a lot. So hopefully it's something that I can hear and that you cannot. That's what I'm hoping. Fingers crossed. But let's forge on. I wanted to check out this story about The View, because there's been talks about their show possibly being canceled, and they're not canceled. They're still here. But let's see what's going on. So Disney executives reportedly tell The View host to tone down Trump criticism. That's interesting. But I'm glad they're doing it, because I think it's one thing to criticize the administration. I think all, we have freedom of speech. I'm just saying we have it. but it depends on how far down the rabbit hole you're going, right? And what is your reasoning for the criticism? Is it to really build up and inform your audience? Or is it just your personal bias, right? And we all have personal biases, what kind of makes our country really outstanding and fantastic to me. We can share our opinions, but when we're sharing our opinions to the point to where they become disparaging, and we're kind of right in that line of slander. I know earlier I said that the former secretary of education, his statement, I should say, came off like he was a pedophile. It was very pedophilic in ideology. And I went on my rant. And I will throw in the word alleged. I'm not trying to slander him. I'm not saying that he is a pedophile. I'm just saying there's a mindset um, that comes with pedophilia. And it's, don't tell your parents. You can always come and talk to me. I'm here for you. And grooming children in a way that's very nefarious. Saying that again, that children are born gay, that's disgusting, because children aren't born gay. They're born innocent. And then they make decisions later on in life based on the interactions that they've had with adults. So let's get into this. So Disney executives reportedly tell the View host to tone down the Trump criticism. Okay. So Disney CEO Bob Iger and ABC News that leans left bias, President Aleem Karahimodovic, have reportedly urged the host of the daytime talk show The View to scale back political commentary, particularly their frequent criticisms of Donald Trump. Now, a lot of people will say, okay, why is Disney and ABC talking? Well, because Disney owns ABC and all of their affiliates and ESPN. And you should look it up one day. It's very fascinating. When they bought ABC, the network, they bought everything that ABC owns. Yes. So that's why Disney was sitting down with ABC. For those of you that don't know, some that do. And so the details, this directive has reportedly caused tension among the show's panel, which is known for its outspoken political commentary. The hosts have been encouraged to focus more on celebrity interviews and lifestyle segments. Despite these suggestions, the hosts have largely decided to continue their political discussions. According to the Daily Beast, that leans left, the host told the executives, "This is what our audience wants. Isn't it gonna look kind of bad if we're all of a sudden not talking about politics?" Now, here's the thing. You can talk about politics. It's the way you're talking about politics, right? Like we did a segment on the third grade. I can talk about politics in the third grade and I can see, bring up what the secretaries brought up. But see, I did take it a step further and I brought you the conversation between the representative and the current head of the Department of Education, right? I didn't criticize Bonnie until I found out who she was. But even in my criticism, I was just pointing out this is who this person is. And I don't really like the fact of how she's handling herself and her decorum. But I showed you who she was. I laid out the facts. I showed you how she votes, right? By finding that wonderful website, GovTrack. Okay. So you could see for yourself, this is who this person is. But what's happening on The View is they're going in like you're at your kitchen table talking. And sometimes that's good, but sometimes it isn't. And what's happening is you're getting off track on the issue because, like I said, it's one thing to talk about the Department of Education and what you think they should or should not be doing. It's another thing to take jabs at people, right? In particular, the Trump administration and be disparaging. And I think that's what the Disney upper echelon and ABC, that's kind of what they're getting around to. So, for context, Disney is the parent company of ABC and ESPN, as I said before. Since Trump's return to the White House, the co hosts of The View have offered ample commentary amid the administration's policies and rhetoric, despite the request to be less political. In the first quarter of 2025, The View was the top rated daytime talk and news program according to Nielsen. So I think they're keeping the rhetoric up because they're like, if we don't, we're going to lose our viewership. I don't think they're going to lose their viewers. Again, you can be politically engaged without being disparaging. You can do it. I mean, I do it here. I know I go in, but I'm not calling people stupid or dumb or crazy. You know what I mean? Because I don't need to do those things. I can just show you what people are doing and you can make up your own mind. And you might think, wow, they are being crazy. Or I might say, ooh, that's crazy. But I'm not going to sit here and disparage people like that. It's like, when Biden was in office, I wasn't a super fan, but I'm not going to say mean things about him either because I don't need to. It doesn't make sense. I might not like the policies and I might be like, those policies are insane. But I'm not going to say disparaging things about him to get the points and, to get the clicks and the likes, as they say. So the New York Post, that leans right, said the directive to tone down the political rhetoric was issued after co-hosts were forced to issue 4 legal notes or disclaimers during a November broadcast while discussing allegations leveled at several of Trump's cabinet nominees. It also highlighted the internal tensions within Disney and ABC News, mentioning a $15 million settlement Disney agreed to pay after Trump sued over an interview by ABC anchor Greg Stephanopoulos. The Daily Beast first broke the story and focused more on the host's pushback against the suggestion. The article emphasized the show's place in the political media landscape, pointing out that politicians from both sides have used the show as a platform to appeal to its predominantly female audience. And that's true. They've had Biden on, they've had Trump on, they've had VP Harris on. And, again, it is a show that Barbara Walters founded, and it was to give women a space to have the difficult conversations that she didn't hear on the air at the same time. And I applaud her for that. But unfortunately, it's become an echo chamber that some people just don't want to listen to because people are more about their feelings than they are about really just discussing the issues of the day. Like I said, there's a way to do things. And people just aren't going. And so now I can understand. It's like, okay, we're going to lose viewership if you do this. Trust me. Trust me. Let's see. There's so much going on with Trump. My goodness, right and left split on Trump's level. Okay. The big beautiful bill. Yeah, we know that was going to pass in the House, but can it pass the Senate is the question. There's a lot of spending in there. I think, let me check this out because I really think what's going to happen, it might get kicked back. It just may get kicked back. And I actually found out something that I hope to bring you guys after the break. I know people were questioning the, was it no tax on Social Security? And that's not here in the big, beautiful bill, but it is a separate bill that has been introduced. And I saved it. I did a place marker on it. So I wanted to show you guys that because, a lot of people are like, does this big, beautiful bill promise? And that was one of the big promises that people really wanted to see. So the Republican-led House narrowly passed President Trump's big, beautiful tax and spending bill early on Thursday. So the bill passed 215 to 214. It eked by. Okay, eked. After party leaders made some last-minute changes to the bill that satisfied House members holding it up. All the Democrats and 2 Republicans, Tom Massey of Kentucky and Representative Warren Davidson of Ohio, voted against the bill after a lengthy overnight debate. So there probably were some things in there that they didn't agree with. Understood. So the bill includes many of Trump's legislative campaign promises, including tax cuts for hospitality and overtime workers, increased funding for immigration crackdown efforts, and cuts to certain social programs. The bill passed the House Budget Committee on Sunday after it faced earlier setbacks. The bill still has to clear the Senate before advancing to Trump's desk. Yeah. That's why I'm like, you got to get to the Senate, because if there's any kickbacks in the Senate, then it has to go back to the House and they have to do those changes. Then they have to send it back. It's this wonderful game of political ping pong that nobody really likes, but it has to be done. And sometimes I appreciate it because at least that lets me know that they're reading the bill and they're not just signing it and then saying, oh, let's just pass it and find out what's in it. There was somebody who said that. Oh, yeah, that was Nancy Pelosi. Yeah, you should never do that. You need to read. You need to read it before you sign off on it, before you vote yes or even no on it, to know what you're voting on. It's important. So, how the media covered it. Outlets across the spectrum have consistently noted that the bill contains many of Donald Trump's legislative priorities. USA Today, which leans left, and the Wall Street Journal, which is center, both noted that Democrats have criticized the bill as taking money from social safety net programs and giving it to the wealthy. Now, I know that we went over the bill, but the social safety net is, I would have to say, they may be referring to where they're trying to, I should say, they're trying to outline in the bill who is eligible for the programs and who's not. Because unfortunately, especially the past 4 years, there have been people that have been in our country illegally receiving aid from the federal government, which they should not have been given that aid, who are no longer going to be eligible for that. So to conflate and say that, there's a social safety net, it's going to be taken away from people, it should be taken away from people. Now, the other one saying, oh, we're giving it to the wealthy. Are we really giving it to the wealthy? Because in that bill, there's an increase in the tax bracket for the wealthy, right? So there are places where there was a decrease for those like in the middle class tax bracket, but there was an increase for those in the wealth tax bracket. So I'm not sure what they're talking about, but this is the emotional politics that they use and the political rhetoric that they use to get us, pitted against one another. And we just want them to do their jobs. I mean it. I'm just saying. So let me see if I can pull it up really quick. I wanted to pull up. Let me see. Nope, that was the Inflation Reduction Act. This is the big beautiful bill. Yep. Like I'm still trying to leave things up so that so I can pull them up quickly. Let me see. New tax. Okay, there it is. And as you can see, I'm using my Brave browser. It actually is pretty good. I think it's very cool for a browser to use it, and it actually pay you. Me and increase the size. I'm just letting it catch up real quick of the text because it's super tiny. Okay. It'll catch up here in a second. It's messing with me as usual. Don't we love technology today? So I wanted to bring up these two bills. So in 2021 and 2022, Paul Gassar, he's a representative from Arizona, he actually introduced no tax on Social Security. So this wasn't just introduced by Donald Trump during the campaign trail. So someone had actually introduced it while he wasn't in office. So I just want people to know it's nothing new. It's nothing new. And it's interesting because in 1995 and 96, they went to amend the Social Security Act to increase the earnings limit, to amend the Internal Revenue Code in 1986 to repeal the increase in tax on Social Security benefits, and to provide incentives for the purchase of long-term care insurance and for other purposes. So in the 90s, right, they were trying to increase the tax on Social Security benefits. What? Or they were trying to repeal, I'm sorry. They were trying to repeal the increase. But here's the deal, like, what do you mean there was an increase? Like, why did you have to put in place a bill to repeal an increase? Like, what? Really? We pay taxes and Social Security so that safety net is there for us later on, to have to turn around to pay taxes on it again. Like, are you serious right now? Like, this should not be a thing. Like, senior citizens should not be paying Social Security or taxes on their Social Security. It's already been taxed. That's why it's sitting aside for you. I'm telling you, our federal government, we just, if I could just shake it loose. But anyways, so in 2021, Paul Gassar, he actually was like, yes, let's do the No Tax on Social Security Act 2021. Fast forward till today. In January, we have Van Drew Jefferson. He's a representative from New Jersey, and he put forth a no tax on Social Security bill again. Now, it did not make it to the big new bill. It is separate from it. And I'm glad that it is separate from it, mainly because when you put initiatives like this into a larger bill, to amend it or change it or even extend it, if there's an extension clause in there, it's a lot easier to just have a single issue bill. And this was something that Matt Gaetz talked a lot about. He was like, we have all these bills and we shove so many things in there. And even John McCain, he talked about the pork barrel spending, where there were congressmen that said, yeah, I'll sign yes on this bill, but you have to do this for my district, or you have to do this for my state. And it becomes this matter of, okay, we're giving you extra money for your state or for your projects in your state, right, to get your vote. So we're buying your vote with what we want, what you want to get out of it. And, that is a sick way that politics are played, but this is what they do. This is definitely what they are doing. But I just wanted to pull this up just to show you guys that, yes, there is an initiative for no tax on Social Security. It's been introduced. That was back in January. It hasn't gone. I don't know if it's gone through committee or yet not. It's just kind of sitting here. So if you want to reach out to Congress, I'm just saying, this is Bill HR 904, and it was sponsored by Van Drew Jefferson of New Jersey. Not showing any co-sponsors of the, he's got one co-sponsor of the bill, and that is Thomas Massey. And that happened as of February 14th. So, I think there should be a lot more Republicans or even Democrats or even like all of them to support this. Where are you guys? You should definitely be supporting no tax on Social Security. So if any of you congressmen are out there listening, this is just a sad showing. Okay, we got two people. We got one person sponsoring the bill and another person co-sponsoring the bill. Where are the rest of you? This should not be a partisan issue. This should be completely nonpartisan. Both the, Republicans and Democrats should be on board with this because this helps everybody, right? So no one's underfoot. Or do you just want to still play political football or ping pong, for that matter, with Social Security? There are people that, they can barely eat or survive, and Social Security is all that they have. And they're still paying taxes on it. Are you kidding me right now? Do the right thing, get behind this bill, and get it passed this year. You guys are going to be breaking. You're going to be coming back in August. Get this done. Okay? There should not be just two members of the House on this. There should be more of you getting this done. You spend so much time, campaigning and calling other people to give you money. I need you to spend a little bit more time on this, on how to save money for the American people. How about that? How about you just do that for us? Let me see. And there was one more story that I wanted to cover. I'm kind of conflicted if I wanted to go to this. You know what? Let's check out the Supreme Court because they've been doing some things lately. So the Supreme Court declines to allow first public religious charter school. I find that fascinating, but I guess because charter schools do get federal funding, they get state funding. But I find it fascinating that they're the first public. Oh, that's what it is. Because whenever I hear charter, I automatically default to private. And it's not a private school. It's a choice, right? And you can, depending on the charter school, sometimes they'll have a lottery because they'll have so many kids in the area that can attend the school, and they have a cap on how many kids can attend. So I didn't think about it that way. I was like, oh, it's the first public religious charter school. I can see how that would get blocked. So in a recent ruling, the U.S. Supreme Court deadlocked upholding the lower court decision that blocked the establishment of the nation's first public religious charter school. The case revolved around a contract approved by the Oklahoma statewide charter school board to establish St. Isidore of Seville Catholic Virtual School, which has subsequently challenged by the Oklahoma Attorney General on the grounds of violating the state and federal constitution. The Supreme Court's decision was deadlocked with 4-4, with Justice Amy Coney Barrett recusing herself, thus leaving the court's decision standing. It's interesting how they violated the state and federal constitution. Interesting. I guess because it's public, it can't be religious. But I think it comes down to, it's got to be the funding of it. But we'll see. So the case could have set a precedent allowing public funds to flow directly to religious schools. Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's got to come down to the money. So the Supreme Court has previously sided with religious families and institutions for similar cases related to state-funded programs. However, the current decision does not establish a nationwide precedent over the establishment of public religious charter schools. The court did not offer a written opinion disclosing how each justice voted. That's intense, Really? Y'all ain't gonna put it on paper? What you scared for? You got the job. What you scared for? What you run? Why you running? Why you running? Say it with your chest. Come on now. Why didn't you offer a written opinion? Yeah, y'all are hiding. Y'all are hiding. Can't hide. We know what you did. We know it's a 4-4 deadlock. We know that Amy, she recused herself. Okay. We know what you did. But you're not going to disclose your written opinion? That says a lot. This is my opinion. So, how the media covered it. The Federalist, which reads right bias, focused on the arguments of Associate Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who stressed that government cannot favor secular institutions over sectarian ones, and framed that prohibition of religious charter schools as discrimination against religion. Okay. CBS News, that leans left, noted that Oklahoma Attorney General Gertner Drummond, a Republican who argued against establishment of the school, said decision could have upended laws in at least 45 states and the District of Columbia, as well as federal charter school program, all of which require charter schools to be non-sectarian. And I can understand that. So when you send your child to a religious school or religious institution that is um, an educational format, it's considered a private school. Now, my dad, hey dad, he graduated from a high school called St. Joseph High School, which is actually very close to Notre Dame. So this high school, even though it was a part of the, I would say, general area, it was a private school, right? It was a private Catholic school specifically. So obviously parents paid tuition. I mean, they probably got grants here and there, based on their status or whatever, but it was private, wasn't public. So if the charter school wanted to be private, that would be fine, because that would mean that parents would have to, pay the tuition, pay the funds, and then send their kids to that school. They're trying to make it public. So imagine your public school right up the street from you. It's a charter school and it's public, but it has a religious, it has a religious leaning. Now, a lot of parents might say, well, I want that for my kid because, I'm a religious person. Okay, that's fine. Well, what if they want to teach your kids about worshiping the devil at school? Okay, now everybody's ears are like, what? What are you saying? What are you talking about? That's what I'm talking about. That's exactly where this goes. That is exactly where this goes. If you want your children in a religious setting for school, private schools are fine. Even private charter schools would be fine. But when you have it open and available to the public, and you're using federal funding and you're saying, okay, we have freedom of religion, right? Then you would be bringing in all kinds of religion to that school. You couldn't say could only be Catholic, or it could only be Christian, or it could only be, I'm hoping I'm making sense to you guys out there. That's why this got shut down. It's not that they're not saying that you can't have it. It just can't be public in that respect. And even if, and here's my thing, even if someone did start, well, yeah, I was just saying a public school, it would be very difficult to make it public, because if they rely on federal funding, then they're under the jurisdiction of the state and the federal government. So I can see why it got shut down. I can understand the reasoning. It's one of those things. Not that I don't like it. I respect the fact that they took the time to flesh it out. What I find very curious is that none of the justices wanted to give their dissenting opinion. I mean, I think I gave a very good dissenting opinion just now. I mean, and no one will be mad about it. They'd be like, yeah, okay, I get it, right? But for them not to want to write their opinion on something like this, it's just very telling of where they are politically. You know, it's like, and it shouldn't be political, right? There are certain things that shouldn't be political. They should be logical. They should be open to discussion and conversation, because there are going to be people 10, 15 years down the road. And what if they try it again? Right. And they'll be like, well, we didn't get an opinion from the justices at that time. We want to know why. We don't want to just your vote 4-4. We want to know why you voted that way. We want to understand your backing in that way, and know the reason why they didn't do it is because it's tied to religion, and there's freedom of religion. I just told you. And everybody believes differently, and they don't want to be pigeonholed if they believe a certain kind of way, right? Because that cannot be a part of their decision. So I can understand why they didn't do it. I get it. Because then you would kind of be backed into a corner saying if you're a Christian or not, if you're atheist or not, right? Because we have freedom of religion in this country. So you had to stay away from it. But at the same time, you could still give the logical argument, the one I laid out, of why you made your decision without putting any religious connotation to it or even a belief behind the why. So I really do hope they change their minds and give us some type of dissenting opinion as to, what they did, why they, ruled the way they ruled. But, let's not hold out hope. This is a very interesting Supreme Court that we have, and they've got some more cases coming up, especially the one on birthright citizenship. So I'm still really excited to find out more on the birthright citizenship issue and where that whole thing is going to land. But with that, we're going to end the show. Again, thank you guys for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News. Through my bumps and bruises, cameras falling. It was hilarious, but you could still hear me. And please join me Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. here Eastern. I'm live on X, YouTube, and Facebook. We will not be here on Monday. We will actually be enjoying the holiday, so I'm not going to be here. But if y'all want to, be on X, that's awesome. I'm not. I'm probably going to sleep in. I might listen into the Punch Bowl. Check them out. And with that, I'm going to let you guys get into your weekend. Have a good one. Stay safe. Stay well. And definitely stay unfiltered. I'll see you guys later. Bye.